Hello peeps, today we're going to look at how to increase realism in Flight Simulator 10. This will be the first of two videos looking at improving realism, and we're going to look at some quick and basic things this time round. The first thing you can do is head into the settings menu and find the realism settings here. Here you'll find a selection of sliders and checkboxes, all of which relate to how the aircraft behaves, and several almost cheat options such as unlimited fuel and automatic rudder. For new simmers, I'd recommend going through these options and picking and choosing which ones suit you for the time being. One thing I would strongly recommend though is that you have the airspeed set to display indicated airspeed. Indicated airspeed is a value which is obtained through the airspeed instruments on the outside of the plane. True airspeed is calculated using altitude, air density and temperature. For plodding about in a small Cessna like what we've been doing in previous videos, you'll want indicated airspeed. I'll cover the differences between the airspeeds in a later video, that's once I actually understand the differences. Next in the options, you can change how much AI traffic you see in the world. To get this, click on the Customize button here, then click on the last tab which says Traffic. Unfortunately, even with the AI traffic ramped up to full, it's nowhere near as busy as real life, but it's good to animate the world and get some other planes in the sky. Stay tuned for my second video, because there are add-on programs which generate more AI traffic in FSX and can make airports as busy as they are in real life. Next easy thing we can do, which will give the world some character when we fly, is to change the weather settings before flying. You can change the weather settings under the free flight screen. Here you'll find a list of pre-made weather themes, ranging from a perfectly calm, sunny day all the way up to a thunderstorm. The other options are static real-world weather, where you can download the current weather for real-life weather stations. Next is real-world weather again, however it automatically updates every 15 minutes, so as real-life weather changes around the world, that will be updated in the game. Finally, we have user-defined weather, where you can create your own weather setup. Here you can see a map of your current location with weather stations marked, and you can change the weather for each station by selecting it in the map and changing the options on the right hand side. If you want to go into more detail, you can click on Advanced Weather, which lets you customize the weather further. Unfortunately, there's no way to save the settings here, so if you wanted a custom weather flight, you would have to set up the weather manually every time. Again, there are add-on programs which do allow you to save custom weather themes. Again, this is something I'll cover in a later video. So that's all the menu options done. Let's jump into the plane and look at checklists. So this would be your first step at kind of managing the plane as well as flying it. So a basic explanation of a checklist would be that it's a to-do list, which prompts the pilot to take certain actions and check certain instruments to ensure that the plane is safe, set up and ready to fly the next phase of flight. A plane's checklist will generally contain instructions all the way from before starting the engine all the way to stopping the engine and securing the plane after the flight has been completed. So to bring up the checklist, you can either click on the little tick icon here or press Shift plus F10 to bring up the knee board in FSX. The knee board contains several pages of information. One of these is the checklist. So say for example we want to start the engine. Let's work through the checklist line by line and start the engine. So brakes, test and set. So we'll test the brakes. If you look in the bottom corner here, yep, the brakes have been recognised, so we'll set the parking brake. Next stage, electrical equipment, autopilot off. So all of that is the radios, that's all off. Avionics master switch is off, that's correct. And fuel selector valve needs to be switched to both. That's this down here, so set that to both. So move on to the next stage now, engine start. So throttle, open 1/4 inch, so we'll just push that forward slightly. Mixture is rich, so we've got good fuel flow into the engine. Propeller area clear, so what we'll do now is we'll just have a quick look around the front of the plane, just to make sure no one's going to walk in front of us and get their fingers chopped off by the propeller. Okay, propeller area is clear, master switch on, so that'll be this one here. So that's on now. Auxiliary fuel pump switch, that's this switch here, on. Then ignition switch starts, just like starting a car. Let's get this going. Okay, and that's the engine started. So now we've got a little second bit there. So then check oil pressure. Oil pressure is here. That's come up off the bottom now, so that's good. Auxiliary fuel pump can now be switched off, so do that there. Flashing beacon and nav lights on, so beacon is the orange light on the tail, nav lights are the red and green wingtip lights. Avionics master switch can now be switched on, so switch that on, you see all our radios come online, and then flaps retracted, and those are already retracted. And then you see the checklist then goes on to before takeoff, climb, cruise, and so on and so forth. So the last thing we can take a brief look at is using the air traffic control feature. So you can open the air traffic control window by clicking the little headset icon here, or by pressing the apostrophe key on your keyboard. This will open up a list of options or messages that you can send to air traffic control, and you can select them by either clicking on them in the window or by pressing the number on the keyboard. So now we have the engine running, let's pretend that we want to go and fly a circuit and ask for permission for takeoff. So what we'll do is we'll tune the radios automatically, and then the option we want is to remain in pattern, so we'll do that.
Inverness ground, Cessna Golf Lima Echo Romeo November, ready to taxi, touch and go. Cessna Golf Lima Echo Romeo November, taxi to and hold short of runway 5, using taxiway, contact tower on 122.6 when ready.
So basically that was just a list of instructions telling us to drive to runway 5 and then call the tower again once we're there, so we'll just acknowledge those instructions.
Taxiing hold short runway 5 via taxiway, Cessna Echo Romeo November.
So normally at this point you would start rolling and head out towards the runway. One thing I will show you quickly though is if you're at an airport that you're not familiar with, you might not know where to drive or which taxiway to follow, because at bigger airports, you know, taxiways are designated by letters. So if you're not sure where to go, there's a useful feature here called Progressive Taxi. So if you flick that on, it draws a convenient line of arrows telling you where you need to go, and you can turn that on and off as you need them. So that's the basics of bringing FSX to life. I will release another video in the future talking about add-ons which take Flight Simulator to a whole new level. Things like environment add-ons, weather engines to improve weather effects, and looking at a few new aircraft as well that you can purchase for FSX. Next video though, we'll be looking at slow flight and stalls, where the plane literally begins to fall out of the sky, but more importantly how to recognise that and recover the aircraft if that happens. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you next time.